As a kid, all a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from everybody. Life lesson learned, I better learn from this bitch, nobody. She pushed me around, she didn't give no motherfucks about it. She broke my heart 3 times, but I ain't getting...
The Indianapolis Colts going to be traveling on the road to face the Chicago Bears. Now, last week, the Chicago Bears defeated the Atlanta Falcons 30-26, and the Colts got the win against the New York Jets 36-7. And for the Chicago Bears, they came back against the Atlanta Falcons, and they made a change at quarterback. They finally decided to bench Mitchell Trubisky and put in Nick Foles, and Nick Foles played fairly well. He was 16-29 passing for 188 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And this Chicago Bears offense looked a lot better with Nick Foles in that quarterback because these wide receivers were finally able to have legitimate quarterback throw them the football. They didn't have to worry about a quarterback overthrowing them by like 20 inches or 20 miles. And not only did this help out the pass game, but it also helped out the running game as well. So this Chicago Bears offense looks really good with Nick Foles at the helm at quarterback. And for the Indianapolis Colts, the Colts offense has played a lot better compared to what they did week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And a big reason for that is because they are putting a big emphasis on running the football. As of right now, the Colts are 8th in the NFL in rushing attempts per game with 31. So the Colts, like I said a couple of weeks ago, for the Colts to win games, they have to run the football and only rely on Phillip Rivers to throw the football when he has to. Because when you allow Phillip Rivers to throw the ball more than 30 or 40 times, you're in for a disaster because Phillip Rivers, if you ask him to throw the ball over 30 times, he's most likely going to have at least 2 interceptions. So, I mean, you need to keep the ball out of Phillip Rivers' hands, only ask him to throw the football in certain passing situations, and try to run the football. And when you look at the Chicago Bears, this is a very favorable matchup for the Indianapolis Colts because this is a Bears defense that gave up 144 rushing yards to the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons aren't really known for running the football. As a matter of fact, they may be one of the worst rushing football teams in the National Football League. Not because they don't have the talent at halfback, but simply for the fact that they just refuse to run the football because they are a pass-heavy team. So when you look at the Chicago Bears giving up 144 rushing yards to the Atlanta Falcons, this should be a favorable matchup for this Indianapolis Colts offense going against the Chicago Bears defense, which the strength of this Bears defense is their ability to stop the pass, but they haven't really been all that great this season against the run. So my biggest concern is going to be, can the Colts score in the red zone? Because the Chicago Bears have the 3rd best red zone defense in the NFL. They only allow teams to score touchdowns inside the red zone 41% of the time. And if the Chicago Bears are able to take away the run game, that votes well for this Chicago Bears team in general because the Indianapolis Colts, they don't want to rely on Phillip Rivers to throw the football. And if you're able to take away the run game, especially in the red zone, you're going to have the opportunity to get some turnovers because Phillip Rivers is a really aggressive quarterback. And inside the red zone, everything is condensed. Like the amount of plays that you can call gets chopped down because you know you're only playing like a small portion of the field. Also, it gets really harder to throw the football in the red zone because of the congested passing lanes. So when you look at Phillip Rivers is a turnover machine if you allow him to be. So the Indianapolis Colts, when they get inside the red zone, I want to see how much success they're going to have running the football. And if they aren't, is Phillip Rivers going to be able to take care of the football, not just in the red zone, but in this game? Because if the Bears are able to key in on the run and they actually see the weakness of this Colts team, which is basically the only weakness that this Colts offense has, is the lack of depth at the wide receiver position, and the fact that they beat themselves. Week 1 against the Jaguars, the Colts lost that game because they beat themselves offensively by turning the football over. So if you're the Chicago Bears, you want to stop the run game of the Indianapolis Colts and force them to rely on Phillip Rivers to win the game, which Phillip Rivers is capable of winning games time to time, but he does turn the football over, which is why the Colts have put so much emphasis on running the football over the last couple of weeks, ever since their week 1 debacle to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if you're the Bears offensively, you started Nick Foles, and Nick Foles is an upgrade from Mitchell Trubisky, but one thing that you don't get from Nick Foles that you got from Mitchell Trubisky was the mobility. Now, if the pocket breaks down, you're not going to have a quarterback that's going to be able to pick up 6 or 7 yards on the ground basically the pocket breaks down. The players pretty much did with Nick Foles there at quarterback. And you got the Indianapolis Colts who, although they have a pretty good defensive line, and they're able to get pressure on the quarterback. So, I mean, the big thing for the Colts is going to have to be being able to stop this Chicago Bears pass attack, because this Chicago Bears pass attack is going to be a lot better than what it has been with Mitch Trubisky now out of the mix. It's going to make Allen Robinson an even better wide receiver than what he was already. This is going to, help Anthony Miller emerge. So, I mean, this is going to help out their entire passing attack in general. It's also going to help out the run game as well, because now we may actually see David Montgomery get a full good workload now to the fact that the Chicago Bears just don't have to worry about being down too often. The poor quarterback play from Mitch Trubisky having to throw the football to win games. So, I mean, Nick Foles offensively, the only downside is that you just don't get the athleticism when it comes to running the football that you would have gotten from Mitch Trubisky if he was still the starter. But overall, this is Chicago Bears offense that has really improved. And, I mean, with Nick Foles at quarterback, the passing attack is really good. And you're going against the Indianapolis Colts secondary that isn't great. And I know Colts fans are going to be like, man, our secondary is great, man. Did you see what we get against the New York Jets? I mean, okay, your secondary played great against the New York Jets. Do you want a cookie for that? The Jets' offense sucks. I mean, they have no receivers. The offensive line sucks. Sam Darnold isn't all that great. So, I mean, I don't really think that getting 3 interceptions on Sam Darnold is all that much of an accomplishment. I mean, if you want a cookie or you want a round of applause for that, I'll go ahead and give you that. But, I mean, I would like to see your secondary replicate that performance against the New York Jets. So, I mean, I still don't know how I feel about the Indianapolis Colts secondary. I still don't trust it. And I think that is the matchup that the Chicago Bears could exploit in this game. And just like how the Chicago Bears have a matchup that they can exploit offensively when it comes to this Indianapolis Colts secondary on their defense, the Colts, they have a hole on their offense, which is the fact that this is basically a running football team. If you have to ask Phillip Rivers to throw the football 30 times, you may be in for a little bit of trouble there, because Phillip Rivers does tend to turn the football over a good amount, which is why the Colts put so much emphasis on running the football. So if the Bears are able to stop the run, you like their chances. And if this Indianapolis Colts secondary is able to replicate the performance that they had last week against the New York Jets, then you most definitely like their chances as well. So the Colts are favored to win this game by 2.5 points. I'm going to take the Bears to win this game. I think this game could be close, but simply I don't think the Colts are going to be able to, just stop this passing attack for the Chicago Bears, simply for the fact that I just don't trust the secondary. I know the secondary played well against the New York Jets, but aside from that, this secondary still hasn't showed me that they have what it takes to stop passing attacks in the NFL. I still think this Colts secondary has a lot of work and a lot of room for improvement, which is why I got to take the Bears to win this game. Not only that, but I just think that the Bears right now are just, in my opinion, a better team. That may sound crazy to a couple of you guys, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the Bears haven't played anybody. But look, I know they're 3-0. They haven't really played the strongest amount of competition. But, I mean, you really can't use that as an excuse to say that they're not a good team, because the Chicago Bears still have a pretty solid defense. They're really good against the pass, and I think that they're going to double down, try to force the Indianapolis Colts to throw the football to win the game. And if they're able to do that, that bodes well for them, because you're going to have the opportunity to get turnovers, which plays to the strength of the Chicago Bears defense, which is their pass defense. So, I mean, I got to take the Bears to win this game. I just think the Bears right now are a better team than the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they win this game 27-21 is my final score prediction in this game. I think that the Indianapolis Colts are not going to cover. I'm going to take the Chicago Bears to win, and that's my final prediction.